What's up, guys? I got a brand new video for you today, and today we're gonna take a look at some crazy stabilization stuff on the A7S III using Catalyst Browse, and also trying to compare it to a gimbal. Now, obviously the gimbal is gonna be better than Catalyst Browse, but I just wanna see how well it holds up to shooting handheld. And we'll try some other things like the proper settings for exporting in Catalyst Browse, as well as like the shutter speed and frame rate and stuff like that, and just see what works out the best. So yeah, let's go.
So to get the best results, you need to turn stabilization off in the camera and then crank your shutter speed up to about 1/200th of a second for 24 frames per second. It's breaking the 180-degree shutter rule, but it'll look the best. Alright, so once you get all your footage loaded into Catalyst Browse, it's just kind of a good place to preview your clips and see what kind of settings you had. You can also transcode this stuff as something else, but I'll do that after I fix the stabilization. So on the right hand side here, we have all our metadata, so the codec it was shot in, the color space, the resolution, the frame rate, and everything like that. And if you scroll down even further, you can see the shutter speed we shot at, as well as the ISO. And as you can see, I shot at 200th of a second, which is a little bit higher than you'd want to shoot for 24 frames per second, but you need to raise your shutter speed, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can actually get a smoother shot in the end. And any clip that has this little film strip with a shaky icon means that it can be stabilized. And as I mentioned before, I'd recommend shooting A7siii. If you shoot an HS, it won't allow you to stabilize the footage. You'll just get an error. And if you can see down here, I have some clips that I shot that actually don't have any ability to be stabilized, and that's because I shot them at 120 frames per second. So you can only stabilize 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. So I've shown you some side-by-side footage, stabilized and not stabilized, and as you can see, there is quite a bit of a crop, and I kind of want to show you why it does that. So we're going to click on this shot here, and we're going to go to stabilize down here. So as you can see, there's a pretty intense crop on this footage, and that's because this footage was super shaky. And this is just what Catalyst Browse decides is going to look the best and the most smooth that it can get it. But you can actually manually go in here and change your field of view. It just won't look as smooth. So we can pull it back out to about there, or maybe just give a tiny bit of headroom. And I'll play this back and just show you what it's doing. It's actually stabilizing this on the fly. And if we want to get even smoother, as I mentioned, you can move this down. So it shows around here. We can go even further if you want, and you can see how much smoother this is. It looks like I'm on a gimbal. So once you're ready to export your footage, you can set in points and out points. If I wanted to start about here so that it doesn't take as long to export, and choose maybe right about here. You go up to here, and this is your export settings. So it's showing what the source data is, which is Rec709 AVCS. And I would recommend not using XAVCS because, as you can see down here, it only allows you to export in 100 megabits per second. And if you shot this footage at a higher bit rate, or even in S-Log3, which I didn't, I shot this in HLG, but if I shot this in S-Log3, 100 megabits per second isn't gonna be enough for color grading, so your next option is ProRes, but I found that ProRes won't allow you to export it in anything higher than like 2K or 1080p. The only file format that I've found that allows you to export in 4K 10-bit is DPX. Right here you can shoot 10-bit full 4K. So I've been exporting all my rendered stuff as DPX, which is fine, it's just a really large file. So one thing I want to show that a few of you guys have asked is the actual shutter speed. So here's a shot that I did at the proper shutter speed, so it's 24 frames per second and 1/60th of a second. And as I said, you need to bump your shutter speed up to eliminate artifacts, but I want to show you what it looks like. So just pay attention to the footage and you're going to see a bit of artifacting and pulsing going on. And you can really see it when I come around this side here. You can see it in his hair right up in here. And so that's why I would recommend shooting with a higher shutter speed. It doesn't look bad, you might not even notice it on mobile or something like that, but if you want some really good footage, you're gonna definitely notice that. So as I mentioned before, it will stabilize 60 frames per second. As you can see, I shot 60 frames per second right here. This is with stabilization off, and we can go down here to stabilize the clip. And you can see it cropped in just a little bit there. It didn't have to do much though, it only cropped in like about 10%. I'll play this back here. And as you can see, it's not playing back very smooth. It could be because I'm also screen recording at the same time, but I do notice that it's not that smooth when you're trying to play back side by side. And the best part about being able to stabilize 60 frames per second is that you can actually slow this down and it'll look even smoother. So I'm gonna export this so I can play it back. And up here you can see that it's rendering the file, and depending on how fast your computer is, this might take a while. This is only like a 6 to 10 second clip, and I find that usually 10-second clips take around 1 minute to 2 minutes to export. But my system's actually really fast because I have a 14-core processor and a lot of RAM, but on your system it may vary. So one of the questions I was asked a few times is if you could have IBIS turned on and use the stabilization. And this is what it looks like if you shot the clip with IBIS turned on and then tried to stabilize it in Catalyst Browse. It's kind of shaky, but then this is what it looks like if you have IBIS turned off, and it's way smoother.
All right, thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully that helped you out and helped you figure out the best settings to use for Catalyst Browse. We saw the comparisons with the gimbal. Thanks to Shane for stepping in as our subject matter. And I'll put links to everybody in the description. Francis for helping out on the camera back there. And yeah, we shot this on the Canon R5. So if you liked how that looked, hey, that review's coming soon too. It's getting windy, so let's get out of here. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. See you guys in the next one.